Actually, I think it is pheasant season right now.
Is it? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
you know what's you know what's crazy to me is it's why do we hunt ducks? You know what I mean?
Ducks?
Yeah, because
The
like
bird? Ducks?
yeah. Because they're cute. They quack and they waddle. And like normally, like there's cartoon ducks everywhere, right? And I feel like they're the only cartoon animals that we also like hunt for sport. Like you wouldn't like imagine like Donald Duck. He's coming home to his duck house. And there's Daphne or whatever the other like the lady duck is called, and there's Huey, Dewey, and Louie are all there. Quack, quack, quack. And then all of a sudden, this crazy golden retriever just barges into the house. He's like, oh.
Here in Kinnick Stadium and from around the world.
Howdy, howdy. My name is Adam Jacobi, editor at large of GoIowaAwesome.com, and you are watching the Iowa Sports Review, our 3 time a week, thrice weekly call-in show, chat, web stream, whatever you want to call it. It's a sound off, but we're not legally allowed to call it that, so don't. But this is our fun little chat show, our Wednesday flagship edition. And I am happy to have you all here with me. And yeah, we have certainly quite a bit to talk about. So, on the gridiron, Iowa, as we discussed Saturday night, Iowa defeated Northwestern by the blowout score of 17-12. But more importantly, we saw Spencer Petras go out with a shoulder injury, still not practicing. And backup QB Alex Padilla is now by himself number 1 on the Iowa depth chart that was released this week. And backup is now Deuce Hogan. And one thing that was very interesting from Tuesday's press conference with Kirk Ferentz, he said that while Spencer Petras is medically cleared to compete, he is still not practicing. So, one, we can be pretty sure that he is a semi-healthy scratch for the Minnesota game that's coming up on Saturday. And 2, it's, really a bit of a sea change in terms of what both QBs bring to the table. And the fact that Deuce Hogan already finds himself at number 2 on the depth chart, if just for 1 week or for 2 weeks or whatever it may be, it has to feel good for him and the Hogan family, just in terms of being able to see some sort of progress, some sort of rising up through the ranks. I don't know what this means for Spencer Petras long term. Ferentz did note that Petras has been an exemplary teammate. I think that is still always going to be the case. And, even when he was sent out for Padilla against Northwestern, they showed him on the sideline and he was, performing his tasks as backup QB, sending in the play signals. This is not official QB backup language, but you get the red hat, you get the clipboard, you get your earphones, and you signal out the next play with your backup QB buddies. And Petras was doing that, and he was being a good teammate, doing the right things, especially for somebody who, for all intents and purposes, is not able to play quarterback at a level that he was last year. Whether that's because the offensive line has gotten worse, whether that's because his shoulder is not really allowing him to, make competitive throws, which we definitely saw against Northwestern in those first couple of possessions that he had. So, I mean, yeah, this is obviously a situation in flux, but as a wise man once said, that's football. And this is definitely prime next man in territory right here. So, very interested to see what everybody's thoughts are about Padilla being the number one, if just for a week. Um, but I will also say this before we open this up to questions, because ultimately this is a question and answer show. I'm just the pretty face. But the one last thing that I'll say is I know that uh, there was a lot of worry among the Hawkeye faithful, especially after Saturday night when Ferentz made, more than a couple statements in favor of Petrus, and there was a little bit of worry that, oh, he's going to go right back to him for the Minnesota game. And one, being able to see the depth chart and see that, this is going to be Padilla's team, if just for a week. But two, Ferentz also had better things to say, or I should say more targeted praise for Padilla coming in than we saw on Saturday. He had, better praise on during Tuesday's press conference. So I think at the very least, the Iowa coaching staff is talking themselves into what a Padilla-led offense looks like. Frankly, I don't think Iowa fans need to talk themselves into it as much at all, because what we saw against Northwestern, and again, it's just Northwestern, just like it's just Longwood, but what we saw really made the offense look more dynamic than it has all year. And even though they didn't, they didn't always execute. There was more than a couple drop throws, and really, really good throws that ended up dropped and ended up hurting drives. But being able to see the ball put in competitive places, for the receivers to make that play, those were winning throws, even though they got dropped. Padilla did what he had to do. So, and even though the offense also got super conservative by the end of the game, by and large, I think it's really okay to be happy with what Padilla showed against Northwestern. And it's by that token, expectations should be similar for the Minnesota game. And, if it ends up looking more like, the previous relief appearances, we'll call them, by Padilla over the course of this season, I mean, yeah, that would be some cause for alarm. But I don't know. I'm feeling pretty optimistic about Padilla. So, yeah, let's open this up. And first of all, Joe, great to see you as always. For those of you who are new or newer to the show, Joe Dvorak here a couple weeks ago announced in the chat during the stream that he's going to be a dad. He had just found out that day, decided to share it with us. So, you, sir, are an MVP around here all the way. Anyway, in terms of what Joe actually had to say, Padilla's chemistry with AB and KJ, it's Arlen Bruce and Keegan Johnson, is a nice added bonus, considering most of us think those two guys need to play more anyway. Yeah, and that one, I agree. Two, it's interesting that whole situation was being set up as the QB wide receiver connection of the future. One thing that was mentioned in Scott Docterman's post on The Athletic today was that, in practice, in the preseason and all of that, Bruce and Johnson spent most of their reps with Padilla and not with Petrus. And, Iowa's depth chart sort of commanded that situation. So, that at the time made sense for the situation. But as an added bonus, Bruce and Keegan have worked their way onto the field very quickly, especially for freshman wide receivers in a Kirk Ferentz system. And I've said on shows before, they don't play the position perfectly yet. There's still some missed assignments, some instances of not getting to exactly where you need to be for a block or for this or that. These are freshman growing pains, and I think it's fair to give them the benefit of the doubt that once they get into year 2, year 3 in the system, that those hiccups are going to disappear. And the fact that they've got guys with that dynamic athleticism, and between them and Tyrone Tracy, that's 3 very, very good athletes that Iowa has on the outside now. That's about as much as you can ask for, especially from a wide receiver core that has 2 freshmen getting major minutes. So yeah, I mean, we're a little bit lucky that Johnson and Bruce's rise up the depth chart has sort of coincided with seeing more of Padilla, because that's their guy. And say what you will, but I would much rather watch Padilla throw to Bruce and Johnson, 2 guys that he has really good rapport with. I would rather see that than Petrus throwing to Nico Reganey and Sam Laporta. That direction of the offense has not worked as well this season. It just hasn't. And there was another thing that came from Doctorman's post on The Athletic, and one of the things that he mentioned was, in the previous 8 games, Petrus was targeting his wide receivers, which again even includes Nico Reganey. I think it was 46 to 60% of the time, 46 to 65% in each of those first 8 games, and then you put Padilla in the mix, and then all of a sudden he's thrown to his wide receiver 75% of the time. So a higher rate of throwing to your most dynamic receivers under Padilla than with Petrus. I'm not a coach. I'm not in practice. I'm not, the one handing out instruction or anything like that. So I don't know how much of that is by design. I don't know how much of that is, calling plays for certain primary receivers, that, whether that changed on the OC level once Padilla had to go in, or whether it was, a quarterback with a different sense of what constitutes open for certain receivers. But I think just in general, just the 20,000 foot view of these things is, the more you can get the ball in your playmakers' hands, the better you are. That's just the better your offense is. Yeah. And David, I agree. More Tyrone Tracy. And I don't think that his role in this offense, in this season's offense, with Petrus throwing the ball, I don't think it worked to Tracy's benefit the way that the 19 and to some extent the 2020 offense worked. So and we have seen some really game-breaking plays from Tracy, and I think that we're going to see more of that if Padilla is throwing the ball than if Petrus is throwing the ball. So I'm fine with this keeping up for as long as it keeps up. And obviously we're only working with 1 start's worth of data to work with, but again, I really liked what Padilla had to show, and I wasn't sure, based on his backup performances, I wasn't sure that he had something like that in him when he came in against Northwestern. So count me as pleasantly surprised, as I mentioned on Saturday night, and count me as optimistic for what we're going to see when Minnesota comes to town. And Minnesota, not an easy win by any stretch of the imagination, but we'll see where that lands. Joe says, if Padilla can run, it keeps the linebackers more honest on passing plays, bigger windows. Yes, correct. That was really one of the most difficult things about Iowa's offense with Petrus running the show this season, was that the offense was achingly predictable for defenders. And some of that is by design. Some of that is because this is a Kirk Ferentz offense. It is what it is. We've had more than 20 years to see how this is going to go. And especially the last 10 have been, reaffirmations that, Kirk Ferentz is always going to run a Kirk Ferentz offense. It doesn't matter who the OC is. So you can want Brian Ferentz fired all you want, but he's only going to get replaced with someone who's going to tell Kirk yes, even more than Brian did. So have fun with that. Listen, you've already made the joke. I can't improve on that joke. I can't. I don't think that we're going to see Padilla have a bad game. I also I get the curiosity of wanting to see a backup QB do their thing, even if it's already a backup QB in the game. And Deuce Hogan in particular certainly cultivated an aura of he's the next big thing, especially while he was getting recruited. And kudos to him and more power to him for that. I just haven't seen any reports that this guy is really, really starting to push in practice. And maybe even if he is doing that, maybe we wouldn't even get that report. Maybe the coaches are that tight-lipped about what's going on in practice. And obviously we've seen just a little bit of that from Ferentz from time to time too. But, I ultimately, I need to see something from Hogan before I start saying, yeah, put him in while games still count. We can pump the brakes on that. It's okay. It's all right. We don't have to see him just yet. Not yet. So yeah, let's see. First of all, welcome if this is one of your newer times watching. My name is Adam Jacobi, GoIowaAwesome.com. And if you're watching, depending on which medium you're watching on, go ahead and hit the YouTube link of, if you're watching this on Twitter or what have you, go ahead and go there, hop on into the chat. So which is different from the comments. So it's going to be like a little live chat window. It's going to be on the right side. So I should do it over here for our viewers. So it's going to be on the right side or the bottom. And you can, anyone can just pop right on in there, ask a question. Iowa Hawkeye football related, maybe a little basketball related. I don't know. And yeah, this is ultimately what the show is here for. And while you're hopping into that chat, why don't you do us pretty please? Do us a little bit of a favor. Hit that like, hit the subscribe notification if you haven't already. Not only does that make us feel good and help us reach our subscriber goals as quickly as possible, but more importantly, it tells YouTube that this is a fun and enjoyable experience for Hawkeye fans, college football fans as a whole who might not already know about the show. Since this, puts us in front of more eyeballs, gets our chat even more poppin', our community as strong as ever. So that is why we ask. It's not just to make us feel good, although, come on. You want to make us happy? You want to make us happy? A little bit of happy? What's that noise? Anyway, so like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hop into the chat if you haven't already, because ultimately this is a show for all of you. It's just by us. So that's all that's going on. All right, let's see. Let's talk basketball just a little bit. Little change of gears here. So Iowa officially opened up its 2021 season with an easy romp over the Longwood Lancers, which I think are in North Carolina, maybe Virginia. I mean, everybody else in their conference is from right around there, so I assume that's the case too. The mid-majors wouldn't be like, oh yeah, Longwood, they're in Utah. That's 15,000 or 100 miles away. Let's add them too. Yeah. Anyway, the game itself, boy, if you had any lingering doubts about this being Keegan Murray's team, let's put those doubts away because he looked really good. Really good. And again, I get it. It's just Longwood. But a bad player, even against a bad team, isn't going to give you 22 points, 6 rebounds, 5 blocks. I think those were his. Might have even been 24 points. I mean, he looked dominant. He looked good last year too. He looks like he has taken a substantial step up. Like this is going to be his team. I know that Jordan Bohannon got most of the preseason hype from your Andy Katz and those types. And yeah, I get it. Like a 7th year senior who can hit threes at a 60% rate. Like that's fun. I get it. But this team belongs to Keegan Murray. And if he's not careful, he might just mess around and end up in the first round of the NBA draft. Like for real. There had been a little bit of that hype coming into the season. And I was not so sure about that. Because we had seen some good flashes, but last season we saw Keegan Murray as usually about the 4th option of anybody who was on the floor. And he made the most of those opportunities. And in a way that like he was the perfect player for that role with his skill set at that time. And once you start changing players' roles, giving them some growth and asking them to do things that they weren't necessarily doing before, some of that change, some of that transition can be challenging, especially for younger players. Keegs ate it up. Now that this isn't the Wieskamp, Garza, Frederick, and even to some extent, now that you don't even have to have Connor McCaffrey on the floor as often, now that he's not the entry post or the post-entry pass god. I mean, he can still be that, but it's not something that you need to have on the floor at all times. There's a whole lot of production that Iowa needs to replace just off of that alone. A whole lot of court time to be had. And the fact that they went straight to Keegan and said, all right, this is your show. You're going to run it. And he looked great. He looked awesome. Can't say enough about that. Can't say enough about how much I am eager to see him against some top competition. And fortunately, if that's what you want to call it, things are going to be cooking with gas for Iowa pretty quickly. There's about 3 more weeks of cupcakes. So we're really not going to see anything different until after Thanksgiving. But after Thanksgiving, right off the bat, there's a trip to Virginia, who just lost to Navy, but is, Virginia, and they were ranked 25th going into that game. And then a trip to Purdue, who looks great this year, and then a home date with Illinois, who again looks great this year. And 2, I think we owe a victory or 2. That is going to be a feisty game, to say the least. So, if this is legit, if this is really Keegan's team, then by early December, we're going to know how well that's working out for them. And again, I'm optimistic. Polar water on line 1. Shouts out to the polar bears. Again, I choose to believe that they have seized the means of production, and it's the first all Ursine sparkling water company. Who says no? I'm not going to check it out. That being said, this episode is sponsored by Bublé, the only sparkling water company that hires Michael Bublé. And they have plenty of great flavors, including purple, but it comes out clear. It just smells like purple. Anyway, so Ray mentions that Longwood is in Farmville, Virginia. Okay, well, I don't think that we should be naming towns after Facebook apps. Like I played Farmville for a while. It wasn't that good. You certainly wouldn't name a town after it. No. But thank you, Ray, for enlightening us. And Ray also says that he's liking this new era of basketball without Garza. Okay. All right. Let's pump the brakes a little bit here, because I do think that Garza was a team player on defense. It's just that his role, what put Iowa in the best position to win was to be the focal point of the offense. And for a center who's still developing his outside shot, and he really didn't get a great looking stroke until his senior year. But, also, if you're going to play center in the Big Ten, you got to be a big dude to do it. And, kudos to Garza for really reshaping his body and getting into Garzilla form. I don't think anyone's going to be calling him Garzilla in Detroit, and not just because, there's so many more extremely large people in the NBA than there is in, even high major college basketball, but also he dropped a lot of weight once he had to start playing NBA defense and, being able to get up and down the court as often as NBA players do these days. This isn't, your Michael Jordan era NBA where, 80 points on 80 possessions is, or I guess that probably would have been like 70 possessions. That's not a formula for success anymore. You got to run, and there's no hiding somebody who's slow on an NBA court. Gosh, look at Boban Marjanovic, who is like Luka Garza skill-wise, but 4 inches taller. And he's 7'3", 7'4". He can't get up and down the court. And believe me, he's in phenomenal shape too. This is not, he gets up and down as well as he can. Boban can. But since he doesn't have that lateral quickness, he can't stay on the court, even though he is just an automatic scorer. And so I think Garza probably took one look at that and said, all right, well, I have to be faster than that guy. And, kudos to him and kudos to his dad for the training that they do. And he's in good enough shape to already be getting NBA minutes like right now. And he's still dominating the G League too. But that all said, while he was in an Iowa uniform, yes, Ray, Garza's defense, it was about as much as you could ask from somebody who was tipping in at 265, 270. And it really just came to a head in that game against Oregon. And that was, it was a tough way to end what had been a really exciting, mini era of Iowa basketball, a tough way to end that season, but just a tough way to end Garza's career. And I get the sense, this is just my speculation, but I get the sense that Fran saw what happened in that second round game against Oregon, when Iowa was a 2 seed and, had really high expectations. And then they just got run off the court by Dana Altman and his Ducks. So I get a sense that Fran saw that and said, that is not going to happen again this year. So not only do we have a situation where there's a bit of a vacuum in terms of replacing Garza's offensive production, but all of a sudden, and I think that we saw this in the rotations for the, for the backcourt as well against Longwood. Again, it's just Longwood, but that was a very defensively motivated team. And that started with Toussaint and Ulis at the point. So we saw a lot more of them. And it's a little bit disorienting to see an Iowa team just not get worked off the dribble. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's just I'm so used to defensive breakdowns from that team over the last couple seasons. And anyone who watched those teams knows, It was real, and it was a problem. For Iowa to look like a defensively competent team, again, it's just Longwood, but they look like they wanted to control the tempo and do that in a way that means turn it up. That's exciting. Like, that reminds me of the early Fran teams, the ones that were carried by like Aaron White and Matt Gatens, where, if you let certain guys get loose in transition, problem, big time problem. And boy, oh boy, like I said, Toussaint, Ulyss, really like what they've brought to the table, but also Patrick McCaffrey. And of course, it's always been the case, but Keegan Murray was always a great transition guy. But Patty Mack looks like he's having a lot of fun in transition. And, this team, the way it's put together, is not going to get run off the floor by Oregon in the NCAA tournament. Now, I'm not sure they're even going to make it there in the first place because the Big Ten is loaded. But they look like, at the very least, it's not going to be a trip back into the basement this season. Joe asks, who's the last guard who could remotely play defense before Joe? Well, I mean, first of all, it's not super fair because Jordan Bohannon has been here since 2014. So you're asking me to take a bit of a step back. But honestly, I think the answer is Anthony Clemens in terms of being that on-ball bulldog type of defender. It starts with Clemens. And I said after, and I'm not sure where I said it. I don't think you can verify this, but I said after Clemens left, like, that's a guy that we're going to miss more than people understand at the time, right? Because he wasn't an all Big Ten guy. He wasn't scoring, 15 points a game. Didn't make it to the league or anything like that, but he played a type of ball that Iowa really, really needed on the perimeter. And I think that we're going to start to get back to that type of Iowa ball. And if that's the case, things look a lot different, because all of a sudden that formula that the top teams could just plug into their Iowa game, which is run them off the court, that's not going to happen anymore. Or, if it's either run them off the court or at the very least just beat Bohannon off the dribble, see who helps, and then pass to whoever's open after that. I mean, it was that easy for years. And it also didn't help that, gosh, if you want to talk about Garza not being quite there defensively, if we really want to have that discussion about Tyler Cook, I'm just saying, the Iowa defense got better after Cook left. And it's too bad because he was super fun to watch on offense. And I enjoyed watching him succeed in the NBA to the extent that he's, been able to do so. He's still getting on the court. He's, I think he got his full contract picked up. This is not a boo Tyler Cook situation. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is, in terms of getting Iowa back to being that like top 25 defense, and we know that Fran McCaffrey has that in him because we've seen it happen before. This looks like the biggest step back towards those defense first Hawkeyes in a long time. And this seems like a team that can turn that defense into offense very quickly, very suddenly. And if their opponent isn't as athletic or close to athletic as they are, it could get ugly in a hurry. And just look at what Iowa did to Longwood. And no, there aren't, teams as bad as Longwood in the Big Ten. But going into that game, I'm just going to point this out. Going into that game, Longwood was ranked 246th in the Ken Pomeroy rankings out of 350, 360 D1 teams. By the way, kenpom.com, KenPom.com. That is my favorite website for college basketball. I check it multiple times a day during the season. It is a subscription-based thing, but in terms of all the team-by-team rankings are free. And if you want to pay a nominal fee, I don't even remember what it is. And frankly, you can ask the other guys at goiowawesome.com. I don't handle those accountings, but it's really not a lot of money. And to be able to get that like super in-depth breakdown, player by player, game by game, team by team in a conference, it is far and away my favorite website. Anyway, all of which is to say, Pomeroy had Longwood at number 246 out of 360. Number 240 going into that game happened to be Western Illinois. And Western Illinois just beat Nebraska in Lincoln. So if someone of similar caliber to Longwood can upset a Big Ten team, then it tells me that Iowa can do these terrible, evil things that they did in transition, that they can probably do that to some Big Ten teams too. So I'm excited to see that, to say the least. All right, we are about a half hour into this shebang-a-bang. So a little bit of a reset for all of y'all. My name is Adam Jacobi, editor-at-large of goiowawesome.com, and this is the Iowa Sports Review. This is our Wednesday evening show, so thank you all for joining us for that. Hop on into the chat in our YouTube link if you haven't been there already. And while you're there, do us a favor if you could. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe and notifications if you haven't done those already as well. Not only does it make sure that you get to see whenever our next shows are coming up, and the next one is going to be Saturday night, or gosh, do we know when we're doing this Saturday yet? I don't even know when kickoff is. I should know these things, and I don't know these things. Anyway, it'll be after the game on Saturday. Will be our next game. But it's one thing for me to tell you that during the show. It's another for you to actually get that notification in your email or on your desktop, or however YouTube chooses to notify you of things. So yeah, go ahead and hit that subscribe, hit that bell notifications, and we'll make this community as fun and wide as possible. All right. So yeah, like Garza's defense wasn't a problem in that game. It's not out on the perimeter. No, yeah, exactly. But he was what's a good way to put this? He wasn't good enough at defense while he was as big as he was to be able to clean up the mistakes that Iowa's perimeter players made. And frankly, that would have been asking too much of him, especially in terms of what he was already bringing to the table on offense. For Iowa to go ahead and ask him to clean up sloppy perimeter defense, usually that involves, sliding over and contesting shots. It's just a great formula for getting your best player in foul trouble early and often. So, yeah, again, there was a whole lot of blame to go around on Iowa's defense, not only against Oregon, not only that previous season, but the 2 or 3 seasons prior to that as well. And, it's one thing to assign blame or to diagnose a problem from our, our living room armchairs and all of that. But it's another to see the coaching staff, and, a lot of this is sort of dictated by the personnel that they've got on the floor, but it's another thing to see the coaching staff be like, all right, that's done. Like we're not having those problems anymore, or at the very least we're working hard to solve them. And again, like other people have said, it's just going to make watching this team a lot more fun if there isn't that constant dread that, like, yeah, like the that yes, like we're looking at a Big Ten or a top 10 team. Sometimes Iowa was even in the top 5 last season. But at the end of the day, like we knew that there were limitations that were going to be like game breakers. Like, for example, perimeter defense, or having a reliable second option on offense if it just wasn't there for Garza, or if you had a bloody nose, or um, foul trouble once again. Wieskamp tried, and like more power to him in the NBA too. I think he's going to have himself a pretty decent NBA career, but I think this team is better built for game in, game out success than Iowa's last team was. And that's crazy. But going from a jump shot heavy, half court set heavy, throw it into the big man and let him do this mic and drill. That either works or it doesn't. And Iowa didn't really have a whole lot of plan B for when it didn't work last season. With the parts being what they are, what we've seen so far, and again, one game against Longwood, I get it. But in terms of what they showed us in that game, what who their primary players are going to be and how they got used against Longwood, and how it can be a reasonable guess as to how they'll be used in Big Ten play. I'm eager to see it. Do I think that they're going to end up with a 2 seed like they did last year? Probably not. Probably not. But I'm eager to see where they end up. And if they end up as if they end up in the NIT, it's okay. It's okay. But if this team is as good as they looked, then they're probably going to end up in the NCAA again. And if that's as a 7 seed, yeah, okay. If it's as a 10 seed, all right. I'm eager to see what a team like that can do in an NCAA tournament format. And I'm more eager for that than I was with last year's team. It just is the case. Let's see. Oh, and yeah, so we are about 45 minutes in. Before we go any further, just a little bit of a teaser here. We are working on getting some more guests, and I'm not just saying that because guests are fun. I'm saying like these are cool things that we're working on. Really, really cool stuff. So for those of you who have already hopped in to the chat, for those of you who have already subscribed and are helping us meet our goals on that front, thank you so much. And we intend to reward you for sticking with us this early with some really, really high profile type of guests over the coming months. And I say months because, there's some things that have to be planned that far out in advance, but trust us when we say that, having Jeff McNutt on was super cool. Having Chuck Long on was super cool. We've got more super cool stuff that we are working on. Not enough for a whole announcement just yet. But I'm so excited that one of my earbuds just fell out. I can't hold. I'm that happy. So, Joe Pick, welcome back, Joe. Good to see you as always. It's arranging lineup by design, nor a big man center. It's the natural evolution. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, Riley Mulvey, Philip Rabraka, or however you pronounce that. They're the closest that you're going to get to that, sort of central big man. But yeah, I think we've seen it not only in college ball, but in the NBA as well, that there's starting to be this sort of like positionless design. excuse me. I mean, this is an extreme example, of course, but some of Golden State's best defenses were with Draymond Green running the 5. And yeah, like he's a Hall of Fame defender. Don't get me wrong. But he was going up against Hall of Fame and all pro caliber centers too. Like, and so at Iowa, and I think that you can just look around at say Drake the past few years, or a lot of the mid-major teams, especially. But having to fill like who's going to be your one, who's going to be the shooting guard, who's a small forward, who's the power forward, like those designations don't really matter as much. And if somebody's going to be the biggest man on the floor, whether if sometimes he is, sometimes he isn't, your combo 4 or 5 types of guys, their roles, whether they're the biggest man on the floor, second biggest man on the floor, the roles don't really change as much, so the positional designations are, they're helpful guides for what to expect, but not a whole lot more than that. And if you don't have a center on the floor, that's okay. Like if Keegan Murray is the biggest man that Iowa has on the floor, that doesn't scream defensive liability to me. It screams like this team's about to run you off the court, and have fun doing it. So, yeah, I'm really, really excited for what this version of Iowa basketball is going to look like. And part of it is, I like to see new things, and we saw the full extent of what running a team through Luka Garza was going to look like. And it was fun. It was good for a guy who was borderline top 100 as a recruit coming out of high school. Borderline 3-4 star recruit, depending on who you asked. For Iowa to be able to ride a guy like that to a top 2 NCAA seed, and at the very least a second round NCAA appearance, great. But I also, obviously Luka had to go get paid. But I saw enough of that. I saw enough. And so obviously there's going to be some, what's a good way to put this? There's going to be some overlap in terms of personnel. Like just because I'm done with the Luka version of this team doesn't mean that I don't want to see Jordan Bohannon out there. But just seeing a new show put on, it's exciting. Reportedly Kirk didn't shoot down alternate unis, hoping for black pants. Serious fan like that. Oh, so like a home blackout against the Gophers, because that would be fun. I don't think we've had one of those yet this year. Yeah, I'll say this about Kirk Ferentz. For as stodgy, as conservative, as no drama, no whatever. For his old school, we'll put it this way: for as old school of a coach as he is, he certainly, especially over the last 5 to 10 years in particular, he certainly hasn't stood in the way of letting the uniforms, what am I looking for here? And we'll just say the uniforms. He hasn't stood in the way of like alternate unis and like cool, interesting stuff that would make let's say a 16-year-old or 17-year-old defensive end be like, yeah, I want to wear that. Are you killing me? Are you kidding me? So I'll give him that at the very least, that because I know that there are Iowa fans of, a similar old and stodgy mindset who think that, too many alternate uniforms is doing too much. Like you're diluting the brand. And there is a way to do too much on that front. Like Ohio State's like all catch up unis against Penn State. Like those didn't look good. Um and that was, going away from what they did best. But I really like what they've done with Iowa's uniforms. And when your three colors that you're working with are black, white, and gold, it's pretty hard to mess that up. Like even the all gold black banana peel throwbacks, if you want to call them that. I mean, they were garish, but in a familiar way. Like they were garish in a way that an all gold uniform should be garish, right? Like you don't ever want to be golded out and boring, and they weren't. That wasn't boring. So, like my guess is Kirk isn't actively being like, like this isn't like whatever those fashion reality shows are. He's gonna be like, oh, yes, can we see more on the shoulders? Yes, I'm Kirk Ferentz. No, it's nothing like that. But yeah, like I think that they've done some really cool stuff um with their equipment. And I want to keep seeing that. Script Iowa on everything, absolutely. The more we can see Script Iowa, the better. I don't know if that makes it like officially a throwback, because I'm not sure that. Well, you know what? I think that we can find this. Hang on. We're going to have ourselves a little exclusive here, and it's called a fun game where it's dead air because because Adam is Googling things. So Iowa Helmet Project, Big Ten Conference, and hopefully I can. Let's see here. And now I'm going to share my screen. Is this ASMR? I don't know. I don't know anything. Share screen. Don't show these tips again. Chrome tab. Where'd you go? Big Ten Conference. Share. So here is another one of my favorite websites, although clearly not nearly as much need to go there as often as Ken Pomeroy. But yeah, so here's Iowa's helmets, and as somebody pointed out, 1977 to 78, gold Iowa helmets with the black script uni, or the black script Iowa. The one thing that I'll say is this, and stylistically, I love it. But 1977 to 1978 was some of the worst Iowa football in forever. Like that was so bleak, where they were like, well, there's this crazy guy down in North Texas named John Hayden Fry. You want to ring him up, because whatever we're doing here is not working. So that is I don't think. There we go. Look at that. I shared my screen live, and it only took 90 seconds of dead air to do it. God. So anyway, we're not really throwing back to good football if we go script Iowa. That being said, yeah, Joe, was like it ended up being 78, so you were very close. So it's a throwback to just dreadful Iowa football, but it looks so good. Like this could be an opportunity to like refresh the script Iowa with the football team, to actually associate it with winning, which I'm not sure they won a single game wearing those. If they did, it was, I mean, truly, for 2 seasons, for 77 and 78, I think those 2 teams combined for 4 wins for those entire seasons. And if it's not that, it's very close. So, you know, we're not conjuring up, you know, some great gridiron battles. No. But it looks so good. Script Iowa, everything. All right. So, what else should we talk about, Hawk fans? Because I see a lot of you in here. I can say everything, not everything. But anyway, so let's at the very least let's sort of recap here. So we're happy about Alex Padilla. Spencer Petras, medically cleared, still not practicing. No idea when we're going to see him again. Wouldn't surprise me if it's the bowl game. Wouldn't surprise me if you know, he decides to check out his options. I don't know, but we'll see. But definitely what Padilla brings to the table, and especially his familiarity with the most dynamic receivers on the roster right now. Certainly some cause for optimism. Now Vegas has Minnesota, has Iowa favored by a touchdown over Minnesota. Maybe some of that has to do with being in Kinnick Stadium, but you know, for Iowa to beat Minnesota, who is, you know, part of a pretty dangerous line of Big Ten West teams. I mean, clearly, we can't count on Iowa to beat anybody in the conference. I mean, they would be favored against most of them, and we can set those expectations. But you know, clearly, if Purdue can roll them, and if Wisconsin can make their lives that difficult, and knowing what we know about the personnel, the offensive line, which is getting shaken up again, yeah, I would be really happy with a 7-point win over Minnesota. All of y'all, is that something you would like to see? Joe points out that it's now 5.5 points. It opened at 7. To be fair, it opened at 7. 5.5 is interesting. Again, don't gamble. I say this every week. Don't gamble. And if you do gamble, don't do it on college sports of all places. Yuck. But like that will break your heart in so many ways that you had never even considered before. Don't gamble on college sports. But that all said, I do think it's interesting to see what the professionals have to say about all this stuff. It's interesting from my perspective, at the very least, even if my money will never go towards any of that. Yeah, 5.5 points at home against Minnesota, who is not bad. But Kirk Ferentz has always really had Red Bull Rob Corddry's number. And by Red Bull Rob Corddry, of course, I mean PJ Fleck. Now, you can't unsee that, can you? By the way, I hope Rob Corddry's doing well. Shouts out to Rob Corddry. But yeah, Dan thinks it's a push even with home field. I don't know if I would go that far, but I do know that, I mean, I should say, I'm very confident that this is going to be a 4-quarter game, that this is going to be something that is very competitive, that like, I don't think this is going to be one of those like fake close games where Iowa lets somebody stick around for a little too long and then just puts them away at the end. I think, especially with Iowa struggles on the line, and with this being like the first start for Padilla, yeah, it's a little bit hairy, a little bit feisty. Ray says, see, like, to yank in like a trap line. I don't know enough about trap lines, but that makes sense. And yeah, I think if Padilla can lead Iowa to 27 points, like he said, like that, you just go ahead and put up a statue of him, like, because 27 points is so many, especially with what we've seen from the offense over the last month or so. Man, oh man. And yes, absolutely, that makes Scott Frost Red Bull Jesse Plemons. Uh, if anything, I think like is what's the? Do you guys know? Is there like a backup, like a shopper's value version of Red Bull? Would it just be like Monster Energy? Like, is he going to be Monster Drink Jesse Plemons? Because I feel like Scott Frost hasn't earned the Red Bull designation the way that PJ Fleck has. PJ Fleck is all that super energetic, like super like strung a little too tight, like in a way that is uncomfortable for people around him. Uh, I kid, but not really. But yeah, I don't get that vibe from Scott Frost at the very least. Like, I feel like he's the Jesse Plemons, but like if he actually did all the bad stuff that Jesse Plemons' characters did, like when he was in high school, did Scott Frost randomly kill a guy and then that happened because of a writer's strike and then the next season nobody ever mentioned it again? I miss Friday Night Lights. Okay, yeah, Rob Red Bull Rob Corddry can't be unseen. Salty Kirk didn't shy away from taking the pig and leaving the timeouts. That was a great game, wasn't it? And yeah, you're never going to be able to see the Rob Corddry thing, especially if you know who that is. Yeah, I'm really, really excited to see Iowa just take out a month of frustrations out on Minnesota because Kirk Ferentz is that kind of guy. As you know, as Chuck Long mentioned in his show, if you're talking about a team that, or college football in general, you're 3 to 4 games a year to get up for. Well, Iowa just so happens to have 4 trophy games, and one of them just so happens to be this week. And you know that Kirk Ferentz and PJ Fleck don't like each other. like we've gotten a little bit of salty Kirk more than once against Fleck. So are they going to be motivated to keep the pig? Yes, absolutely, extremely so. And to the point where it wouldn't surprise me if we get some really, really aggressive play calls on offense. Just dipping a toe in the water of trying to run them off the field. I don't know. I really don't think our coaches have the starch in their collars for something like that to really keep it up for all game long. But I also didn't think that prior to 55-24, which some breaking news in 2017, Iowa beat Ohio State 55-24. True facts. It happened. People forget that. Ray says it's called Rip It. Generic Red Bull. That, oh boy. So I have to ask the follow-up question. Is it as disgusting as it sounds? Because that sounds awful. But I also don't like monster drinks either. I only like bubbly. The purple sparkling water that tastes like purple. Purple. Anyway. We are an hour in on this one, so just a quick little recap for all of y'all. My name is Adam Jacobi. GoIowaAwesome.com. You're watching the Iowa Sports Report Wednesday evening flagship show. This is your chat, call in, chat in, type in. There's got to be like it's the online version of a call in sound off, but we can't use either of those terms. One is not accurate and 2 belongs to somebody else. But anyway, so thank you for joining us. And if this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that like, go ahead and hit that subscribe. It tells YouTube that this is something that belongs in other people's eyes and not just yours. And it makes us feel good and gets us closer to our subscription goals and it just makes everything better. And all you have to do is just click once or twice, depending on your whole situation, and it makes everything better and doesn't make anything worse. Sounds fun to me. Oh my goodness. So the over under going into the game was, or going into the week, I saw it at 37.5, which is bad enough. The fact that it's going down it's a little bit terrifying, because at 37.5, again, like I'm talking Sunday night here, but that already was the lowest over under in college football by 3 whole points. And the fact that they're just tapping that one down even more, I would still take the under if I were a gambling man, and I'm not. Don't ever bet money on college sports or anything else. It's bad. It's a sin. But again, it gives us the expectation that we're going to have a dreadfully low scoring game, but it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, 21-15 can't be scoregami, right? Like, I feel like any version of, like, any score where the combined total is under 40, like, there can't be that many left, especially when they're, like, both in double digits. Like, maybe 23-8 has never happened. Maybe it has. I don't know. Ray says, oh, no. It's an energy drink handed out to soldiers during the Iraq war. It tastes like kerosene. Well, kerosene is what they had on hand. So, you go to war with the energy drink that you have, not the energy drink that you want, right? Didn't somebody say that once? I feel like they did. But anyway, all right. So I think we're feeling good about Minnesota. We're feeling good-ish. I don't think I've seen anybody in the chat say that they think Iowa's going to lose this game. And yes, I agree that saying these things out loud should not be allowed, and anyone who would say that they think Minnesota is going to beat Iowa belongs in prison just until Sunday. That's not long term. No, just enough to make them hurt and miss the game. I'm kidding. This is a pro free speech place. Anyway, but yeah, I think that there is a little bit more optimism there than we've seen in a little bit. Do we want to credit that to Padilla? Probably a little bit. But he's earned it, right? It was just one game. It was against just Northwestern. But I think Padilla has earned our optimism, at the very least, just for 1 week. And if everything goes sideways, which it might, then all right, we'll go from there. And maybe we'll even hope that Petrus's shoulder improves. Like, we'll see. I don't know. But it should be fun. It should be good. All right. So with that, I think our chat is about to head into bed. And yeah, it's after 9 p.m. It's a school night. I'm not going to keep you all up. I wouldn't do that. Not Uncle Adam. No. So with that, I hope you've all had yourselves a wonderful time here. Thank you all for joining us, and our numbers have looked pretty darn good this week. So with that, my name is Adam Jacobi, one last time, of GoIowaAwesome.com. This has been the Wednesday night flagship edition of the Iowa Sports Review. I almost called it report again. I shouldn't do that. So with that, shouts out to everyone who has supported this channel, whether it be Jeff McNutt, Chuck Long, shouts out to Come and Go, shouts out to the Iowa Sports Foundation, shouts out to Count the Kicks for especially helping out Tori Taylor and vice versa. Shouts out to all our subscribers, all our chatters, all our friends. Shouts out to you especially. So with that, go Iowa Awesome. Go Hawks. Good night.